First thing I want to say is Laurice Duffy, thank you so much for joining us. We've known each other a long time. I'm actually friends with all your sons and grew up in the same town. So we're super appreciative to bring you on. You are an incredible mother, an incredible entrepreneur, and you have an incredible story that we are dying to hear more about. So, what I want to start off with is you have an Instagram page, A Mindful Journey. This was built 5 years ago or so.
I became a certified life coach and started my Instagram page with the posts as a result of receiving quotes from my niece when I got some really bad news about my husband's illness. And I was also getting Bible quotes from my sister in law. And I realized that the quotes that my niece was sending me were so helpful. They just shifted sort of my outlook that day, helped me feel stronger, and gave me encouragement. And I realized that, well, gosh, if they helped me so much during such a challenging time in my life, I want to spread that to other people. And so I started the Instagram page really trying to give that inspiration and encouragement that was so helpful for me to others.
And you have an incredible story that led up to this. I'd like to dive into around 2015, 2016, when your world kind of flipped upside down. If you could start with just telling us about how you heard the news, what the news was, and um, how it impacted you.
Yeah, sure. So, my husband was a very active, athletic, healthy man. He coached, I have four boys. As Ryan, as you mentioned, you have been like a brother to the older ones who are triplets. Ryan, we've known you since preschool, so
Mhm.
it's been a long time. And then I have another son, 2.5 years younger. So the youngest one was 11, the triplets were 14. Kevin coached them in basketball, football, and baseball. And he started to just have some odd symptoms. Just his tongue felt a bit swollen. He was getting a lot of leg cramps. And he started seeing doctors and started, having a lot of tests done, seeing more doctors, more tests, until finally we found ourselves in a neurologist specialist office. Kevin had taken the day off of work and we went to the appointment together. We were giggling and, joking around with each other. The mood was pretty light, as I was sure, and I'm thinking he was too, that we had gotten all the scary possibilities out of the way. All the testing came back, everything was fine. And I was certain that, we were going to figure this out, and he would, be on some sort of treatment plan and he would get better. And after the neurologist had finished examining Kevin, he called us into his office. And his first words were, "This is very serious," which got my attention very quickly. And he proceeded to share with us that he believed Kevin was in the beginning stages of ALS, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. And that basically there was no cure, and that the survival time was about 3 to 5 years. And I have never felt like my life just sort of passed me by. We had built such a beautiful family and a beautiful life together. And of all the things I worried about, which, as you can imagine, having triplets and having four sons under the age of three, losing my healthy husband at a young age was never one of them, not even something that ever even entered into my mind. And we had to, um, just kind of understand that this was going to be our new reality and that this is what we were faced with. We didn't tell the boys right away because we wanted to get a second diagnosis to make sure, which we did. And it came back that it was ALS. We shared with the boys, the news, and that, you know, Duffy's never give up, which was a mantra, right?
Mhm.
And that we were going to fight. And then we found out about Lyme disease and sort of went down that rabbit hole. A Lyme literate medical doctor believed Kevin did in fact have Lyme disease and was misdiagnosed. Now you have to understand that the symptoms overlap each other.
Mhm.
And there is no definitive test for ALS, and Lyme testing is very unreliable. So it's very easy to believe this diagnosis gave us hope, right?
Mhm.
So for about a year and a half, Kevin, we drove an hour and a half every month to see this doctor. It came highly, highly recommended. Kevin did every kind of treatment you can imagine, therapies, diets, um, IV antibiotics, everything. Every possible thing that there was, he did. And he started to decline. And he didn't want to see it. He didn't want to believe it, understandably so. This diagnosis was the only hope that he had. And I had shared with him that I really wasn't sure at this point if we were searching for answers or if we were running from the truth. And that was a hard day. It was a hard day because Kevin wanted hope and I would have given him anything, but I could no longer give him hope when hope didn't feel true anymore. And there's a quote by Elizabeth Gilbert that I always referred back to, and it was, "Don't forget that every truth you tell is a kindness, even if it makes people uncomfortable. And every truth you don't tell is an unkindness, even if it makes people comfortable." And I realized that truth was disguised really in the most love, even though it hurt. Um, to have to not be his cheerleader anymore, not believe that this was Lyme disease, that he was going to be okay. I mean, I was, really the one that brought him back up when he was feeling down or feeling unsure. Because I truly believed it. I truly believed it was Lyme disease. I couldn't imagine that, you know, God would take away this amazing man, this fantastic father, and wonderful husband. So back to another ALS specialist, we went in Colombia, and I'll never forget. He said to us, "I don't know if you have Lyme disease or not. What I know for sure is that you have ALS." And it was at that time that I realized acceptance was an absolute must. It was an absolute must.
What was running through your head when the doctor said that? I know it was you've gone to multiple doctors, gotten different diagnoses of different it could have been anything at the time, but hearing that, what did your mind go to when it came to your cleaning business at the time and your 4 boys? Where did your mind go to with them?
It's interesting. When we got the first diagnosis, or really the second, so when we told the boys that night, this was before we went down the Lyme disease rabbit hole. Um, my youngest son came into my bedroom. He was 11 years old, and he was so overwhelmed with emotion about, you know, where we were, what the uncertainty of what would come. And I took his little hand and I walked him back into his bed, and I crawled into bed with him and sort of tucked his head under my chin, and I held him really tight. And he said to me, when will daddy die? How will in order, he didn't even let me answer. When will daddy die? How will we get his wheelchair up the stairs? How will you be able to afford for us to live here? And I don't ever want you to have a boyfriend. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, this poor little boy. His mind has gone to places that mine hasn't even yet. And I remember telling him that we were surrounded by a lot of strength and a lot of support and a lot of love, and that he didn't have to worry about anything, and that everything would be taken care of. And I remember just holding him even tighter, like almost as if, to relieve him from the fear that I was, completely overwhelmed by, Um, and I remember even thinking like the profound love, of a mother, even when she's broken, because I was so broken, but his pain was so much bigger than mine or my brokenness. Um, and so at that point, I think that I was just overwhelmed with disbelief. I couldn't imagine that this was happening. Like I said, with everything that I worried about, everything that I thought about, this happening was never even remotely on my mind or something that I concerned myself with. Um, so I think in that moment, I think it partially was shock. It was partial disbelief. It was partial like just you don't even know, you can't even put it into words, you can't even imagine what the future looks like, and you know what, you almost can't even go there because your mind will play out such awful scenarios, that I think it forced me to be in the moment more because it was all I had. Because
Mm,
if I went off into the distance, if I went there, it was an awful place to be, and such an uncertain one, but one that was filled with so much fear and so much sadness. So I really just tried to, stay where I was and try to keep myself as best I could, um, grounded in what was in front of us. And then when we found out about Lyme disease and thought that it was Lyme disease, then I just became incredibly, um like immersed in educating myself about Lyme disease and knowing every single thing. And part of that was to really give Kevin encouragement and to help him through this because this was really hard. um and honestly, at the very end, when we went through the Lyme disease, when he started to decline, and I realized there is no way we could be doing everything that we're doing, that he could be on IV antibiotic and declining if this was really Lyme disease. And that's when we saw the third specialist at Columbia Presbyterian Hospital in New York. Doesn't really get much better than that. And honestly, my thoughts were, I surrender. I surrender to what is because I don't have any strength. I have nothing left to, you know, to give into this narrative that it's something other than ALS and my husband's going to die and I'm going to be a single mother. And, my children are going to be without a father at a very young age. Um, and it was with that acceptance that I probably was finally able to take a deep breath.
when you thank you for sharing that, by the way. When you are when you get to that phase of acceptance, um, do you start to mourn at that point? Is there a reality? Like, I remember when my dad passed away from leukemia, it was well before he actually died that I'd mourned the loss. Like, so many times before, I'd cried so deeply with him because I knew it was coming, and it almost gave me it was one of the things that I was grateful for in that moment because I was able to have somebody I was able to mourn the loss of somebody before they were gone. So, what did that, period afterwards look like as a family?
So, I absolutely know what you're talking about because I was absolutely mourning Kevin's death before we had gotten the Lyme disease diagnosis. So absolutely. can identify with what you're saying. When Kevin got the Lyme disease diagnosis, obviously we had a lot of hope and tried to carry on life as normal. And then, back to, like I said, the third diagnosis. So interestingly, what happened is we had gone back home on our way back from Colombia and brought all the kids to the family room to share with them what we learned, because I felt that it was very important that we not keep anything from them and share what we know as it's told to us. Kevin at that point was not really able to talk that well. This beast of a disease eventually took his ability took the ability away to for him to speak. So I did all the talking, and nobody said a word. The room was absolutely silent. And then from across the way, my one of my sons, in like this faint whisper, just said, "Mom, are you okay?" And I said, "Yes." And when we all exited the room, I remember thinking, why am I being asked if I'm okay? Like, I'm not the one that's going to die. I'm not the one who has this terminal illness, who just got this awful news again. And I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure out why why he was asking me, "Mom, are you okay?" And I thought about it for a while. And then I realized that my kids were watching their father decline, even though we were doing all these treatments, therapies, IV antibiotics. And they actually knew at that point that they were probably going to lose their father. And what they needed to be sure of was that they weren't going to lose their mother too, the mother that I had always been. And when I realized that, I honestly took my power back. I realized that I had been craving control in so many places where I had none, that I lost sight of all the places where I did. And I had control over leading this family in such a way that created stability and security and safety. And that I had the ability or the opportunity to show the boys in what was their first experience with trauma that it can be okay. And that we can or that I could be the example of patience and kindness and compassion and love and strength for them. And it's interesting because when life was great, when life was really easy and pretty darn good, I was a great mom, wife, sister, aunt, daughter, friend. And I thought to myself, now that life's at rock bottom, who am I going to be now? And I knew I got to choose. And so I really, with intention, decided that I didn't have the power to change how this was going to end, but I certainly had the power to create what it would look like until it ended. And that's where all the power was. So who was I going to be to my kids? Someone who offered them stability and strength, someone who I cried in front of to give them permission to feel their own feelings. I was going to be the example of patience and love, true love and dedication and commitment to another person, even, through sickness, through death. Um, I was going to take care of my husband in a way that provided him with the most comfort, the most kindness I possibly could. And I was going to take care of myself and go out to dinner with friends and go for walks and do the things that I needed to refill my own tank so I could give to everyone that needed. And part of that was even accepting help from other people, allowing them in to provide relief for me, to provide dinner so I didn't have to worry about that. all the things, right? I even thought about my future self and what she needed. I really thought about her, and I knew she needed peace. I knew she needed to live without regret. So, like, when my husband would wake me up at 4 o'clock in the morning because he was just really anxious and asked me, like, "Oh, could you just like rub my feet or just like rub my head? Like, I'm just really struggling." I would do it like with a smile because I knew my future self needed to look back on those moments and know that I gave him everything possible to make his last time, or, the end of his life as comfortable, as reassuring, and as kind as possible. So,
I think you make a great point there too, where it's like you have to fill your cup first to be able to help others. I mean, Jamie and I talk about this all the time. It's like when the masks drop on the airplane, you gotta cover yourself first before helping others because you're no use if you can't breathe. And I think that goes a long way. And one piece I wanted to touch on also is how the community impacted this. I mean, being a member of that community, I had never seen a group of people rally like the way they did. I remember the OLM 5K, the statue put at the front of the school, the memories that everyone shared. It was remarkable. And I want to get your perspective on how the community helped you through those tough times.
so it's interesting because what happened is one day I just received this phone call from this man, and he said, "Laurice Duffy, I know your husband. I think they coached together, or Kevin coached his son, something like that." And he said, "I heard about what your family's going through." He said, "And we run a 5K turkey trot every year." He said, "And this year we would like to sponsor your family." He says, "We have raised even $7,000 some years." And let me tell you, the whole Lyme disease, when we went through all that, that was out of pocket. So we had spent like $50,000 out of pocket. Insurance doesn't cover any of it. So, there was part of me that was like, oh gosh, that, certainly this would be helpful. So I said, well, he said, would you accept? And I said, well, if you're sure there's no other family that, needs it more than we do. And he said, we would really love to sponsor your family. I said, well, thank you so much. I would love to accept. So I think that these turkey trots are that apparently go on every year that I know nothing about is going to happen this year, and the people that like to run these turkey trots and are 5K runners or whatever are going to go run and donate, and he's going to come to our house and he's going to give me a check, and I'm so grateful. All of a sudden, a week later, I'm driving the boys home from some sporting event, and there's this huge sign at the corner of a main road and a side road. And it says turkey trot, and there's a big turkey on it. And it says sponsoring the Duffy family. And I saw it and like, and my eyes, and I didn't say anything. And one of the kids turned his head and said, "Hey guys, did you just see that sign?" And I was like, oh no, what have I done? So now people, friends, family, everybody's signing up for it. And I'm like, oh my God, I think we have to go to this. And I started regretting my acceptance of this very kind deed, but I started feeling like very uncomfortable. Okay, so it's the day of the turkey trot. The boys and I jump in the car. Kevin is bedridden at this time, so he can't come. And we pull up to the Ovalon parking lot where there that is a church that is in our town, and there is over 600 people there. And I immediately thought to myself, oh my gosh, had I known this, I might have said no. And I would have taken away the ability for the boys to see all of this support, to hear all of these people silently whispering, "We've got you." And my concern, or what would I call it? My reluctance in saying yes immediately turned to gratitude. And it was so beautiful. It was so beautiful for the boys to even have the experience to see how people, you know, open their arms and support and give love and are so kind. And we took videos and pictures and we went home and brought them back to Kevin to see, all the love that was surrounding us. And probably about a month later, the guy came who their biggest check was $7,000, and he gave us a check for almost $52,000 and said, "We have never experienced anything like this in any of the turkey trot's." And we were just, it was just, for so many reasons, it was unbelievable. And every dime of that went to the boys' college fund because I felt like um, that felt good to me. That felt good, and I was feeling like as a community that would probably feel good knowing that these boys were all going to get an education and that this was going to be a big contributing factor. So yeah, so really, really wonderful. And I think it's a reminder that, we are giving people a gift. And I say this for anybody going through something, who feels uncomfortable asking for help, because as I mentioned, we had dinners coming here almost every night. We had so much support and help. And what I realized is that we are giving a gift to people just as much as they are giving a gift to us, because people don't know what to do. They just don't know what to do when a family is in crisis mode, or in the middle of some sort of very difficult challenge. So by allowing them in, by allowing them to help your family, you're giving them something that they can actually do where they feel like they're doing something. And then not only that, but it frees you up to give more time to your kids, to give more time to your, in my case, sick husband. So it is just such a win 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 that's created. So I just want to share that for anyone who's listening that's feeling like, oh, I don't want to bother anybody. No, people want to be bothered. They want to help. It makes them feel good. It really, really makes them feel like they're contributing in some way to such devastation.
I remember that like it was yesterday. It was
Mhm.
an incredible event. The amount of people and the support was astronomical. We never could have bet on that either. It was crazy. And just from my perspective with the boys, it was like, whether you know it or not, all 3, 4 of your boys know way too many people. I remember kids from Butler baseball in this town over, and I mean, the connections they've made through their lives has been incredible too, and the support was, "Oh, I know this one and this brother and that brother," and yeah, I mean, the event will forever be something that we remember in the small town of Kinnelon with not many people, and the rallying was just unbelievable. It really was. I wanna touch on, through all of this, how were you running your business at the time? I know you have a cleaning company,
Mhm.
and I'm interested how you were even juggling that with so much going on in your head.
Yeah. Well, what was interesting is I have a bachelor's degree in psychology and always felt that my calling, my purpose was to be some sort of therapist. And I didn't want to continue my education. I really had to go on after getting my bachelor's degree. At that time, I just wasn't ready to do so. And then Kevin and I got married, and then, life happens, right? And I realized I had the cleaning business. It helped pay the bills. It did not fulfill me. It wasn't something I felt passionate about. But at that point, I had 4 kids. My cleaning business allowed me to be home with them and run it from my home. And it was when Kevin got sick and the first diagnosis of the doctor saying 3 to 5 years after the dust settled and we thought it was Lyme disease, I thought to myself about that statement and how in 3 to 5 years, my husband could have passed away, and the older boys would be in college. And I thought, I consider myself a wife and a mom. That would all be taken away in 3 to 5 years. Who am I? Like, who am I? What fills me up? What do I have that's mine that can't be taken away? And it was shortly after that I found out about life coaching, like miraculously. So I'm going to get back to God for a second because, like, when I said, how could God take away, right? I realized my parents had said to me after Kevin had passed, I don't understand. We just don't understand how God could take away such an amazing husband and father. And I said, my God didn't take away Kevin. My God actually put me in connection with everything that I needed to get through this as powerfully and as strong as I possibly could for my family. And I found out about life coaching school, and it was about a 9 month program, 7 month program. I was running my business, taking care of Kevin, who was sick, 4 young children, and taking care of everything to do with the house. And I went for it. I said, I'm doing this. I believe that we are pushed by pain or pulled by pleasure, but I think pain motivates us the most. And I did this course and got certified as a life coach during, like, probably the hardest, most challenging time of my life. Um, and it was the most amazing thing that I could have done, not only to start my career helping people, as I've always wanted to do and felt that I was meant to do, but it gave me the tools to really lead my family in the best possible way. It really shifted my perspective to see things a little bit differently. And there was a coaching principle I just want to share with you that I lived by. And it was, each moment describes who you are and gives you the opportunity to decide if that's who you want to be. And while Kevin was sick and we were certain it was ALS, and we were basically living life waiting for death, right? Um, I lived by that principle. And when I felt sorry for myself, not that I didn't allow my feelings, you have to allow your feelings. The only way out is through, right? But when I was going to fall into anger mode or victim mode or whatever, I would ask myself, Laurice, who do you want to be right now? Who do you want to be? If I wanted to be a victim, no judgment, and no judgment for anybody who's going through a hard thing and is a victim. If I wanted to be angry, then and have a tantrum, okay. But here's what I was going to consciously choose. That's what I was going to do. And by asking myself, who do you want to be right now? The answer was never a victim. The answer was never angry because it wasn't going to help anybody. Because I consciously asked myself, I didn't just allow it to happen and overcome me without making the decision. So I would make the decision of who I wanted to be. Did I want to be somebody who was the example of patience and strength? Did I want to be, did I need a night out with my girlfriends, whatever, but I was going to decide. And and that's what I did. I decided. I really decided who I was going to be. And that really helped me. It was a really powerful question that really guided and helped me. And I got certified and I started the business very lightly, very, very lightly. Kevin cheered me on the whole way. He was so proud of me. And then he passed. And he passed April 18th, 2018, 3 years, excuse me, 3 days after his birthday. And almost 3 years to the date, almost like even a month less than 3 years from the diagnosis, to the original diagnosis. And shortly after that, at that point, it was just about being there for the kids, kind of just allowing us to just feel our pain and sort of, because you think that you're waiting for someone to die, and when they die, you're just waiting for this storm to pass, and when they die, the storm is going to pass, but actually what happens is you find yourself in a new storm. And now it was time to really pick up all the pieces in such a way that my kids really believed that everything was going to be okay. So I needed time to just get a new normal, to just allow everybody to feel their feelings, to sort of just see each day and be available. And once everybody kind of got comfortable with where they are and our new family of five, I proceeded with the coaching business. And COVID hit, which was really messing things up for the cleaning business. And then I decided to sell the cleaning business and went all in with the coaching business. And never looked back. Best decision I ever made.
It's
Best
incredible.
decision.
I mean,
Yeah.
it has to be a very scary time too, to leave, you're comfortable with the cleaning business, and then you have to go into something new like coaching. It's a whole different ballgame. And I noticed you were doing speaking engagements too. When did that begin? Was that after, I would assume after COVID, but, what were some of the speakings that you did as well?
So, it's interesting. You know, when I get anxiety or have to do something that creates some nervousness, some anticipatory anxiety, I'm always so relieved and so happy when it's over. It's like, oh, I can breathe. Like, I did it. I did it well. I didn't make a fool of myself. I was asked to give a speech at one of my son's football banquets. And Kevin was sick, and I wrote this speech, and it was really good. And it was powerful. It was about football, but it was like I was able to just um, make it into sort of like a life lesson, too. And after the speech was over, I went back to my seat, and I was so like filled, like I was so like exhilarated. And I wish I could have done it again. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the first time I've done something that has, caused nerves and some anticipation, and that I wished it wasn't over. And I realized that I needed to pay attention to that. So after I wrote the book, um, I realized that I had such a strong message to share with people that no matter what their circumstance, that their circumstance won't create their destiny, but that their choices will. Um, and that it's not in the most tragic events that we endured, but it's the choices that we make following those events um, that shape our future. And that's where all our power is, because we don't have control over things that happen to us, right? External circumstances that happen, like Kevin getting ALS. That, I mean, he didn't drink, he didn't do drugs. I mean, he drank a little bit, but he didn't overdrink. He didn't do drugs. He was healthy. He was athletic. He was in shape, and he got ALS. Right? I mean, we can't control these things. So we have to figure out how we take back our power and how we make choices that change the trajectory of what this challenge has created in our lives. And again, I feel so strongly about this. That doesn't mean you bypass your pain. You feel your pain. The only way to heal it is to feel that pain. It's important. And then you make a new choice, right? And then you choose again. There were times that I would cancel plans because I was just filled with emotion. And I knew I had to be there and allow my feelings to be. And then once I did that, I would just choose again, and go do something fun or go whatever I wanted to do. But I knew I needed to pause and pay attention.
I wanna talk about your book. It was
Mhm.
an incredible read. I remember when it first came out, my family and myself, we ordered it immediately. I read it in a week. It was incredible being on the inside of the story and hearing a different perspective, so, I definitely wanna give you some props there. The book was incredible. Where did you start with that? It's like looking up a mountain when you say to yourself, "I'm gonna write a book." It's like,
I
where do
know.
you start?
Yeah.
Um, I know where the inspiration came from, but where did the motivation come from? Was there a story that led into, "I'm gonna sit down and start writing this book"?
Yeah. Yeah. So while Kevin was sick, I would write. I like to write. I have a family of artists. Um, you wouldn't want me as your Pictionary partner. I am the worst drawer, painter. I got none of that DNA. But what I learned is that my creativity came in a different way, and it came through writing. So while Kevin was sick, I would write, and I would blog, and I would put them on my Instagram or on my Facebook, mindful journey page. And people were really, moved by it. Um, I was at a high school girlfriend, we were friends since we were little. Her dad had passed away, and she walked right over to me and said, "You need to write a book." And I thought, wow, that's a very nice compliment. And I thought to myself, oh, thought about that, but whew, that feels overwhelming. And then there was like nudge after nudge, things would happen. People would talk about me writing a book or, whatever. And I truly believe that the universe kind of gives you a little tap, and then it kind of gives you, some nudges, and then you kind of get a smack across the head, like, come on, I'm telling you exactly, the path for you. And I ended up 4 years after the anniversary of Kevin's death, I end up posting a blog that I wrote in a very large Facebook community. And the response was unbelievable. I think there was like, I don't know, there was thousands of comments, and most of whom said, this was the most powerful, thought provoking blog I've ever read. Are you an author? Blah, blah, blah. So my thought of, how can I accomplish a whole book, like suddenly shifted to how can I not? Like, how can I not? It's like I feel like the universe has just had people holding up signs, like, come on, let's go. So I sat down and I just outlined chapters of what they would be. And I gave myself, I put in my calendar, my phone calendar, chapter one to be completed, weeks later, chapter two to be completed. And I just typed. And it was like my fingers were just like dancing on the keyboard. Like it was like a story that my heart had already written. It was just so graceful. And not that there weren't moments of, how can I word this better? How, and all that stuff. But the story and the meaning and the inspiration and the hope that I wanted to give my readers was so clear to me, because I was someone who believed that, like, oh, if my world, cracks in any way, like we're all going down, like there's no recovering from this. So I wanted to spread the word, like, no, like, don't be so afraid of life and the things that come at you or the things that happen, because there's so much more and you still have so many choices and the ability to do and become. And for me, helping people or giving them something, regarding inspiration through my story helped give it purpose, and it didn't feel like it was all for nothing. So I wrote the book. I wrote it, I started it in May, and I had given it to my first person that was going to um, go through it for me, my sister in law, who does this for a living for medical journals. Um, and it was published that February. There was, we had to go through a bunch of stuff, and there were, times that I would change things and then rechange them. So it was a process for sure. And I'll be, perfectly candid with you both. There was a moment that it was almost done that I sat at my computer and said, "Are you out of your mind? Well, who do you think you are? Who do you think wants to read a book that you wrote about? Like what?" And that's that little voice that everybody has, that little like, you really sure you want to make a fool of yourself? Maybe you should stay safe, stay small, don't be doing the thing,
Mm.
because you could really be taking a chance here that you can't recover from, right? We all have them. That does a little inner voice. And I bypass that little inner voice because I know what it's all about and I know what it was there to do. But there was a moment that it kind of had me, and I went for it. And I remember someone from town being the first. She had, I didn't even know that you could do this, but she had, I think, purchased it before it actually published. So it was some kind of like pre. So she was the first one, because I was thinking, I remember saying to one of my sons, "Oh my gosh, like I just spilled my heart on all these pages. And like people are gonna review it and comment and judge. And like it's like my heart. I just handed my heart over to the world and said, here, whoever wants to dig in, go right ahead." But she was the first one to reach out to me and say, like, I pre-bought this book, read it in like one day, and I didn't want it to be over. And I went, And it was like at that moment, I was like, it's all going to be okay. Like, it's going to be okay. People are going to really like this book. It's really going to help people. And I was just so grateful for the opportunity, for the, inspiration, and to be able to give that kind of hope to other people. Example for the boys
Mhm.
that, yes, situations will happen in life that, really punch you in the stomach, really bring you to rock bottom, but you always have the choice to rise back up. And it was really important to me. I mean, they have been my why through this entire thing. So it was really important to me to be the example, for them, as far as what's possible.
It's incredible, and for our audience, it's young aspiring entrepreneurs that just wanna learn at the end of the day, and your story's so impactful that it can show people, the highs and lows in life and how you can come from shut the lowest of the lows and really make something out of it and find a purpose. And I think that's what a lot of people struggle with. And Jamie and I talk about this all the time. It's so hard to find a purpose at such in your 20s, in your 30s, in any age. It doesn't matter. So I think what you've done is incredible and inspirational to our audience and audiences all over the world, honestly. I wanna continue to share this message, and, I want people to hear more of your story, and that was our big thing for bringing you on. We wanted to hear the story ourselves, but also give our audience an opportunity to hear it for themselves as well. So thank you so much. We are so grateful for your time today and sharing everything that you've shared already. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I mean, truly my honor. And to have you guys doing so well and just going out there yourselves and putting yourself out there and doing what you're doing, and to have the opportunity for to be part of it with you, Ryan, particularly because I've known you since you were so little, and the boys were so excited that I was going to be on the podcast, as was I. But to be part of what you're doing as such an amazing adult, is just so near and dear to my heart. So thank you
I
both.
appreciate that so much. And I want to also let our viewers know that we're going to be doing a giveaway for this episode. Laurice Duffy has graciously offered a 1 hour free coaching session to whoever likes, comments, and subscribes on this episode. We'll be picking a winner by the end of the week after the episode has gone launched. And we hope we can inspire someone through that coaching session. So definitely make sure you like, follow, subscribe. We'll be sure to pick a winner shortly. But thank you again. This story was incredible, and we'd love to get you on for another part two potentially. I know there's so much more that we need to talk about. So
I would love it. And I want to just remind your audience that it doesn't have to be a challenge that's as tragic as death. It could be having difficulty, creating boundaries. It could be having difficulty with someone in your life, or, how you think. It doesn't matter because we all have, room for growth and areas where we need to take our power back. And that's what I'm here to do.
thank you for sharing that. And could you just share with our audience where can they find you? Your
Yes.
Instagram handle.
So my Instagram handle is a mindfuljourney.ld. I also have a website, which is a mindfuljourneyld.com. And my book is on Amazon. It's Raising Hope by Laurice Duffy. And you can, like I said, find it on Amazon. So yeah, reach out to me, even just to say hi. I love meeting you people and connecting always.
Thank you again. The book's an incredible read. So read the book. You won't regret it. But we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.